Why are we here? What are we looking for? What are we here for? Do you know?
Sap.
Sap? What kind of sap?
Maple sap.
Maple sap. There's a lot of different kinds of maple trees. There's Japanese maples, there's rock maples, there's black maples, there's red maples, there's silver maples, there's sugar maples. So which particular maple are we looking for? Kind of hard when you have, well, they're not, well, eventually it gets to maple syrup, but we have to find our tree first. And the tree that we're specifically looking for is a sugar maple. And the reason why we're looking for a sugar maple is because their sap has the most sugar in it. And the most sugar, about 5%, is on the high end. They've actually started producing super sugars that are closer to 8%. They've done that in about the last 20 years. I'm not sure where they're being used. Our woods here are probably at least 50 years older, if not older than that. So all of our trees are not super sugar trees. They're just ones that produce a higher concentration of sugar. Now, if we're looking for trees, how do you tell one tree from another tree? Do they all look the same, or are there some differences?
Some differences because I see one of them have a hole.
That have a hole, and anything else do you see that makes them look different?
The bark is different.
Okay, one of the things, and sometimes I can find more at the moment I haven't, I have two different leaves here. Are they the same or different?
Different.
Are they?
Color,
Are they the same shape?
Yeah.
Like it.
Yes.
They're the same thing, but only different. And they are, because they're both maple leaves. But this is a red maple, and this is a sugar maple. But I've been over and picked them both up right from here. So can we tell which tree, which leaf came from?
Okay. That one came from that one.
So if we look up, are there a lot of leaves on the trees right now?
Oh, I know which one. That one goes to that, and that one goes to that.
But if we look up, are there a lot of leaves on the trees? No. So are these a good indicator? They are, just not at this time of year. They're a good indicator later in the spring, summer, early part of fall. But just so you know, there is a distinct difference between the leaves. Even when they're green, there's a distinct difference. So we cannot look at leaves at this time of year. So we have to look at other things. So if we look around all the trees, if you just turn around and look at all the trees that are here, there's a lot of them that look kind of same to each other. Okay? And so we're looking specifically for sugar maples because we want their sap. So we have to figure out how we can tell one tree from another without leaves. So there are three things that we need to look at, and they all start with the same letter that makes it easy for us to tell, and that's the letter B. What is on a tree that starts with the letter B that we can use?
Bark.
Bark. What else?
Branch.
Branch. What else? There's a third one. There's three B's. What's the third one? It's a little teeny tiny thing on the tree, and it's a short word.
Bud.
Bud. So we need to look at the bark, the branches, and the buds on the tree to tell one tree from another. So we're going to start looking at the big tree that's right back here because this is a very mature sugar maple. It is kind of grayish in color. Alrighty, and it looks as if the bark's peeling or curling off of it. You can see there are spots I can put my fingers actually behind in different spots here. The only problem is silver maples and red maples look very similar in their bark characteristics. They age a little differently, but they look similar. Alrighty, so what was the next thing after we looked at bark? We had to look at branches. Now, when we look at those branches way up there, do you think we can pull one down to look at it? No.
If it's closed, I guess.
Well, that's why I was looking at the skinny little tree over here, because I can pull down these branches so we can look at them. All right. So we get a good look at these, and we can talk about them. Because all maples, all those different maples I talked about, along with horse chestnuts, ash trees and dogwood trees have what are called opposite branches. The majority of the trees in the tree world have alternate branches. So if we look here, here is one set of opposite branches, here's another set of opposite branches. If I go, here's another set here, there's a set down here, there's a set up here. A lot of opposite branches. You will not find all of them being opposite because things happen. A bud does not develop, a small branch dies. When they're young, an animal goes, something tasty, and bites it off. So different things can happen. But as long as you can find a few sets of opposite branches, you know it's within that family. And the larger portion of that family are all maple trees. So that kind of makes it easy. Now, what was that very last thing we were looking at? Buds. Buds are very, very tiny. They're very small. If we look, we want to look at that bud there. Can you see that bud? That's pretty small. Alrighty? But it's the buds that's going to tell me that this is a sugar maple. They are small buds, dark brown to almost black. I always think that the new growth on them, and on this particular tree, it has about ½ an inch of new growth right here. And I can see on each one of these, oh, this is a bigger piece. And I always like to think that they look like kind of they're pretzel brown in color. Food's always a good reminder. We can think about that. However, if this tree was a red maple, this would not be that pretzel brown. It would be a burgundy-ish red. The bud would be red also. They have very small buds also. However, if we were looking at a silver maple, they have big, fat, round buds. Very easy to distinguish, even if you can't get a branch down. So if we were looking up at that tree and couldn't see up there, we would know if we saw big, fat, round buds that it was a silver. It would be harder to distinguish between a red and a sugar maple. You can tap a silver or a red maple. However, their sugar concentration is not as high as a sugar maple is. In order to produce syrup out of a sugar maple, it is a 40-to-1 ratio. It takes 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. When you look at silvers and red, it's a 60 and 70-to-1 ratio. That's why they're using sugar maples. So if you have a red or a silver at home, you can make syrup out of it. It's still going to taste like maple syrup. More than likely when you go to cook it though, because the caramelization process, it'll be a dark syrup, but it will still be maple syrup. Why are we here in the winter doing this? Why can't we do this when the weather's nice in the summer, in the spring, in the fall?
Warm days, cold nights.
Warm days, cold nights, and that's what we need. Sugaring is extremely weather dependent. All farming is. Sugaring is even worse. We need below freezing nights and above freezing days. And we know 2 weeks ago, did we have above freezing days? No. We never got out of the 20s. You know what? Nothing ran. We had no sap because of that. We're saying below freezing nights, above freezing days. Why? Well, if you think about it, if you look at any of these trees, look at all those branches. We talked about the buds on them. All those buds, when it gets warm, says, oh, wait, it's got to be getting close to springtime. And what happens in the springtime with the trees? They grow their leaves back. Not just leaves, they have flowers also. So all those little buds want some food to grow. And part of the food is the sap, what we're taking a portion of. They drink up the groundwater, dissolve the sugars in the system, and sends it as food to all those buds. And we are catching the sap on the upward flow to feed them. And the only way water moves is when it's above freezing, because below freezing, it's what? It's ice. So it's basically a hydraulic action of that sucking up and feeding those buds. And at night, it goes back down and goes back up and down. So that's when we are collecting the sap is on the upward flow, because the sugar's still in it, because it's going to go to feed those buds. So that's what we're trying to catch. And that's why we're doing it this time of year, because you can't do this in the summer. The trees are actually working on storing their sugars for the next year. We have to find a tree that's big enough. This tree is a sugar maple, but you saw the size of the tree that has the bucket on it. This is kind of tiny, isn't it? We need one that's at least 10 inches in diameter. So we are going to stroll a little further into the woods in order to find a tree that's large enough. So the next thing is and I looked, as I walked up, I looked up and looked to see, were there any branches hanging? Was there something that was broken on this tree? probably during the winter months, if we haven't had a horrible winter. But sometimes you find it if we've had a lot of heavy snow where a branch has broken and then it drips. It's bleeding already. It's losing its sap. I would not tap it for the simple fact that I'd rather let the tree go a year and hopefully have it for another 50 or 60 years than to tap it. With that, because we have been in this woods for approximately 20 to 25 years tapping, most sugar maples, because we have tapped them for that long, have tap scars. So I'm going to walk around the tree because I have to identify the tap scars because I need to avoid them when I go to tap by at least 2 inches. So I'm going to take a walk just around the tree so I can see, here's an old tap scar here. You can see that one over here. And I want to see if I can see any other tap scars. There's a really old one here that's kind of broken down and hard to tell, but I know it's there. There's one up there too. So I think I'm going to tap on this side of the tree. There are theories that if you tap on the south side of the tree, you're going to get a run a lot quicker. But if I have to continually avoid something by 2 inches, eventually I work my way around the tree. So I just pick a side that I like, and that's what I'll work on. That's right, if I ever do. So with that, tap the tree, right? Yeah. Did it work? Come on. Okay. So that doesn't work. The young man this morning said, no, you need something sharp. And I do have something sharp. We are in a time frame here at the farm between 1890 and 1910. They did not have battery powered drills, which is what we would use today if you were going out and doing it. But I use a bit and brace drill, which would be our time frames. Tapping is actually producing or putting a hole in the tree. So I want to put a nice small hole in the tree so it bleeds. It's going to bleed blood? What's it going to bleed? Sap. Isn't that what we're after? Some nice sweet sap to turn into deer rock. Alrighty. So I've picked my spot. Bit and brace means I've got to lean on this to get the tractor to get it going. I'm going to put a nice hole in my tree. And am I doing this completely horizontally? No, slightly upward angle. Why do you think? Well, a lot of people say gravity. Gravity does help. There's more than just gravity though. Well, gravity in the long run does work. I'm also concerned about the health of my tree going forward. Again, I look to make sure it wasn't had any broken branches. With this, at the end of the season, when I pull the tap, if I did it horizontally or in a slightly downward angle and it rained and the water ran down the tree, it would go in my tap hole. Standing water, fungus and bacteria. Do we want it in our tree? No. At least with this angle, it'll keep everything out. So that, again, looking for the health of the tree in the long run. When are we collecting this sap? When it does what? Where's the sap going? Up. So if you look at my tap, this is the bottom of the tap. Where's the hole to collect the sap? On the bottom of the tap. Upward flow. Alrighty? So it makes sense. And if we look at it, this is where the stop is for the tree. And so I need a little headroom back here so we can get some buildup. So that's how deep I have to make my hole. Now, can you be very careful? Hold on to that for me. Thank you. So I'm going to make my hole just a little deeper because I use the same bit on my drill. I know where the shiny part is, which is about how far I need to go. And we want to make sure as we're doing this that all the waste wood that's in there comes out. So there we go. So I've got that. Now I've got my hole in there, right, from tapping. Do y'all see that? Now I need to set my tap very firmly. If we look at the pail that I have out here with me, or the pails that are on the tree, that pail holds 2.5 gallons of sap. Anybody happen to know what a gallon of water weighs? 8.33 or 8.34 pounds per gallon. At 2.5 gallons, how much weight is that hanging on my tree? It's approximately 20 pounds. So I have to make sure my tap is well seated. The bit that I use to drill this hole is a 7/16 inch bit. If you use a 1/2 inch bit, it is too large. It will not seat itself well to hold the 20 pounds. Alrighty. Now, couple things. Does anybody here have maple trees in their yard? Nobody? Nobody? Yes, you do. Are you going to tap?
Maybe.
Maybe. It has to be 10 inches in diameter. It's free. Alrighty. One of the things, it is very hard to get metal pails anymore. We even have a problem here. But if you want to do this as a backyard project, water, juice, milk jugs. Simple S-hook through the handle to the hook underneath. Need a piece of tubing. And there you go. Okay. Only problem is, how much is that? A gallon. How much is my pail? 2.5. On a perfect sugaring day, just below freezing at night, 55, bright, clear, and sunny, that pail can be filled in less than 8 hours, between 8 and 12 hours. So, a lot more milk jugs. I always say there are neighbors on recycling day. And you make sure the containers are sanitized. You can use them. The best part about using those things, you know what? You don't have to store them. Recycling comes, you send them out, you have neighbors again next year. It works. Because we are in the 1890 mode here, we will put on the appropriate one, but I do like to show this for anybody who's doing this at home. We will hang our pail to start collecting our sap. And because this has a very large surface area, it's supposed to snow, rain, sleet, whatever, tonight. So if I don't put a lid on this, we will dilute our sap. So the couple seconds it's going to take me to take my lid and put it on will save the guys down at the Sugar Shack hours worth of burning and lots of fuel. So the few seconds that I'm going to take to put this lid on will save them a lot of time. If you looked when we did the milk jug, there is about this much clearance around that tube, so you wouldn't be apt to get it larger surface areas, more room. Okay, how do we know when the season's over? Sap stops running. Not necessarily. It can continue to run and not be of any value. We stop having those conditions up and down, or the freezing nights get further and further apart. If it's below freezing during the day, we will have no sap run. If it's above freezing for more than 3 days, the tree is full and the sap stops running because we don't have that up and down, up and down. It's constantly full. So we don't have it. You have to wait for it to drop below. Those things get further and further apart with below freezing. The sap itself will actually change. Initially, if you got it early in the season or even now and there was enough sap, if you tasted it, it is not. It's after all 5% sugar concentrate or lower. So it is a mild sugar taste. It is actually an aftertaste of sweetness. So don't think it's, we take it from 5% to 67% sugar to make it into maple syrup. So with that, as the season goes on, that sugar content drops. When it gets to the point where the buds basically are ready to burst, we end up with bud sap. It can be cloudy, it can be discolored, a greenish yellow, a yellowish color. And I say, if you're really doing it in your own yard, taste it. Because what you'll find out, it is not pleasant. Bitter, kind of almost minerally. Basically what you are getting is filtered groundwater, and it's being filtered by the tree. And you're getting the minerals because that's what's being absorbed by the tree. That's the time to say, no, I can't turn this into syrup. It's going to be tasty. So that's when you take your lid, your bucket off, you pull your tap. With that, you do nothing to that tap hole. It should heal itself from 1 year to the next year. That's also an indication for your health of the tree. The next year is that tap hole you made last year sealed. Another reason why I walk around the tree is anything I see has it sealed up and closed up. Alrighty, so it should close on its own and heal within the year's time so that you can tap the same tree next year 2 inches away from the existing tap spot.